This is the I Read Comic Books podcast. I am your host, Mike Rappin. Joining me this week, two adults who are helping escort me out of the mall for being too large to ride the penny pony. I mean, I thought this was America. Kara Szymborski. And Nick White.
Hey, yeah, they do have limits for the Myers horse. There are rules.
Exactly. That's the Midwest reference that I was going with this week. This is episode 276 of I Read Comic Books.
I gotcha.
I'm very excited to talk about comic books with Kara and Nick this week. So let me ask this legally mandated question that I'm forced to ask every single week. Before I get into that, I want to remind everybody that we have a hangout, or tell everybody we have a hangout coming out on March 20th at 8 p.m. So be there, bring a taco for me. I expect everyone to have some sort of dish to pass. So don't just show up with chips. I expect you to make something, bring a casserole, whatever you prefer. We're going to be there on March 20th at 8 p.m. in our Discord. So make sure to join us. Let's get into comic books. What are you excited for? I guess, what comics have you been reading? How have you been? I'm all over the place. Nick, let's start with you.
Wow, I mean, we're really kicking this off on a good note, and you're handing it to me, which means this is not going to go anywhere good. But, yeah, things are good. Things are fine. Doing a lot of reading, quite a bit of reading. One of the things I read was Berserker #1, although technically all of us diehards are calling it Berserker, which is kind of bad because you never really know if someone's pronouncing the title properly or having a brain aneurysm.
Sure.
Okay. Right. So that's maybe not the best idea, but they went with it. So this book is co-written by Keanu Reeves and Matt Kindt. Keanu does have the main, top of the call sheet, as they say in the industry, which, I mean, okay, fine. We can argue that one. Ron Garney on art. I guess he's a big too hot shot. I don't know. No clue. I guess he did Daredevil. That's great.
Oh my gosh, Nick.
I'm making fans left and right, I'm sure.
People are screaming into their telephones or whatever they're listening to this
Ron
podcast
Garney
on right
is
now.
an American treasure, you idiot. Okay. Bill Crabtree on colors, Clem Robbins on letters. Obviously, we talked about this book last week. It's a big deal for multiple reasons. Got delayed a couple times. Number one, Keanu Reeves is involved. Number two, best-selling book with 600,000 copies. Sold more copies. Nothing has come close to this since Star Wars #1.
Right, but is this loot box style
Yeah, I know. How are the
the
numbers being manipulated? Blah blah blah. The only two things, lies and statistics. We all know.
Yeah.
Read into it however you want. But still, big deal. Obviously, they got in some hot water with Kickstarter. Do you guys really need the money? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Boom said, oh, we're just trying to expand the reach. We're trying to reach people who don't normally read comics. And everyone said, oh, really? Do we really want to believe that?
I'm still flustered.
This is literally what Archie Comics did like 6 or 7 years ago. Because what happened was Fantagraphics did their Kickstarter because they're like, their co-founder had just died and he was like the reason they were existing. So like that was a big community swell of support and everyone supported the Fantagraphics thing and like they're okay now. And then Archie Comics was like, oh, we can make money that way. Let's do that. And they tried a Kickstarter and everyone was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Right. Well, it's the same thing with Boom, but Boom didn't cancel their Kickstarter like after 5 days. Boom's justification, if we're trying to broaden our horizon by getting more people to read, that's bullshit. Kickstarter has an entire division dedicated to comic books because of how popular comic books do on Kickstarter. Like, you're not trying to appeal to a different audience. You're just trying to use the sensationalism of Kickstarter that has this limited time offer kind of thing to get people to say like dedicate their dollars in advance rather than using previews. It's genuinely, we could do a whole episode about it. I think we have an episode coming up about this that is going to be just all about Kickstarters, and I'm going to get up on the tallest Empire State Building tall soapbox about all of this shit. Just you guys wait.
Do it.
Oh boy.
Anyways, sorry, Nick. I know you're talking about this book.
So as we also talked about last week, I think it becomes a question of whether or not you choose to believe these things or not. I do believe that this book was already funded and everything was taken care of before they went to Kickstarter. And I do believe that they were strictly using Kickstarter to fund 19 different permutations and variations of this book. Do those need to exist? Great question. I don't know. That's up for debate. If people want that stuff, then they can buy that stuff. I suppose that's how the economy works. I don't know. You tell me. So that's fine, I guess. Again, controversy, I suppose. Beyond that, in terms of the book itself, it's not a bad deal. It's like 50 pages for like $4.50 if you have CU.
If you have CU, yeah.
It's not a bad way to get you in on the ground floor. I think that was pretty smart. In terms of the book itself, I think really the biggest point where I certainly go back and forth on this book is this book for me? Was this book meant to be like something generated for my interest? And I do genuinely believe that if you look at this book from the framework of, was this trying to actually get new comic book readers? I think it does kind of achieve that. You've got a big name in Keanu Reeves. Obviously, the main character is modeled after Keanu Reeves. It's a very action-y book. I do think that it does sort of not overwhelm people with prose, which I guess kind of goes both ways. If you're someone who's never read comics before, maybe you kind of see prose as a crutch, because like prose is like the part you understand. You're like, oh, I know what to do. This is reading at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this book could have gone the easy way out and just gone super prose heavy. But instead, I think if you look at it as a book that's trying to transition people into a phase of visual literacy, I think it does that very well. There's actually probably like 30 words in the whole goddamn book.
Yeah. I mean,
and I think what's good about that is it does sort of, like I said, it moves people towards being more visually literate than relying on prose. And I think what helps that is that the book doesn't do too many wild shifts, if any. You're almost always following, if not always, following this main character. You're not changing to other character perspectives. There aren't really that many time shifts in the book. I won't say anything more about that for fear of spoilers. There really aren't that many location shifts in the book. And so there aren't those moments where a lot of us that read comics a lot are able to sort of like realign ourselves and figure out what's going on. But if you don't have someone holding your hand, those sort of moments can be kind of confusing. So I do think it genuinely makes an effort to put something out there that I think is something that new readers might be able to understand. I think the art style is not really House, but it's like House adjacent, which is fair.
House for who? For Boom?
Like House, like when I say House, I'm talking like Big Two House, right?
Okay.
I think this is like Big Two House adjacent. It's like a variation on the theme. It's not wild Riley Rossmo art, but it sort of is maybe expanding people who don't read comics. I think this is sort of giving them the idea that comics can look a little different without giving them something that looks utterly foreign.
Right. I mean, it doesn't look like a Mark Bagley book, right?
Yeah.
I understand that. But it does look like John Romita Jr. And if you've picked up Spider-Man in any time in the last 25 years, you've seen John Romita Jr.'s art.
Yeah.
So like,
it's like John Romita Jr. dialed up to 11. It's
no, because if you've read Anti-Venom, you would know what John Romita Jr. dialed up to 11 looks like. This looks like John Romita Jr. dialed down, and someone actually kind of tried to clump this clay together to look like an actual thing, versus when he goes full reign, it just looks like a ton of scribbles and that look like something that you would expect in a Ray Fawkes book, but he wasn't trying to do it artistically. He was doing it because he just wanted it to look busy.
I'm getting mental whiplash trying to follow these references. Like, this is
sorry, I'm all over the place. This book,
what?
I'm so frustrated by this book, because as much as I liked it, I feel like it's Matt Kindt doing a Mark Miller. That's my thing about it. Nick's been sending me these Siskel and Ebert fucking YouTube videos, and now I feel like
wait a minute.
that.
No, go back to
don't drag my YouTube rabbit holes into this public sphere, okay?
All I'm saying is it feels like you and I are now Siskel and Ebert. But sorry, go ahead, Kara.
Go back to the Matt Kindt does. Did you say Frank Miller?
Mark Millar.
Mark Millar.
Yeah,
right.
sorry.
No, that's a vivid picture. That's helpful for me, because that's a name that's a little more recognizable, because now I'm visualizing like you're trying really hard to go for like just carnage, just like carnage for the sake of the carnage, and everything is like really intense and there's blood everywhere for no reason.
So Kara, you've read this book then, is what you're saying?
Oh, I know now. See, but that was a good reference. I got that one. The Spider-Man one is lost on me because I think Spider-Man and I'm like, Tom Holland's so cute. Not quite, but like you get it. I think more like Todd McFarlane early 90s covers when I think Spider-Man comics.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think like Mark Miller, with Mark Miller, there's frequently like underpinning things to the violence that make it even more discomforting, and we don't need to get into that at this point.
Sure.
But this book is hyper-violent. This book is resoundingly hyper-violent. And yes, it's a story about a guy who's this immortal warrior. He can't figure out why he can't die, and his goal is to figure out how he can actually do that. So again, if you read comics, you're like, geez, this sounds like Bloodshot. This sounds like Eternal Warrior. You know, this sounds like Wolverine. We've seen this character several times over and over. If you're new to comics, maybe this isn't something you've heard of. So maybe it doesn't, you know, feel like this is the third or fourth time you've encountered that. But this book is so hyper-violent. And obviously, like some of those other things, I think it's trying to run it for gags. Like, you know, isn't it funny that the bad guys are trying to like blow him up with explosives, and instead he just grabs the explosives and holds it to the guy's chest and just lets it blow up because he can't die. Isn't that funny? Like, isn't it funny to see him like get his nose blown off at point blank range? Again, like, I read a lot of books that have violence in them. This feels like it's like got HBO season 1 syndrome, where like your show is so desperate to show that it wants to be taken seriously that it's going to front load so much violence and so much sexual content just so you're like, oh, I get it. This is a big boy program, right? Like, I feel like that's what this issue is doing.
I just from the descriptions you have now given me of specific moments from this comic, I'm like genuinely confused as to how Fox News would review this comic book. Like, would Fox News be okay with the violence because this is America, or would they be not okay with the violence because think of the children and the white women?
Yeah.
Like,
anyways, we have focused on this comic book for way too long.
Yeah, but you and I both read it. I think that's fine. My bottom line with this book would be this. I think it's a perfectly fine starting issue. I'd say 7 out of 10. It's Matt Kindt. I do believe he is, with 12 issues, I do believe he has some sort of bigger picture. I do think sort of the issues that I have with it kind of pounding some points ad nauseum and whatnot is, again, because I do believe they are genuinely trying to put a book in front of new readers. And so a lot of the winding plot twisty stuff that I'm used to from Kindt, I think we're going to get it, but I think it's going to be sort of like breadcrumbs, and it's just going to be very slowly distributed.
Yeah. Longest bottom line, I get it. I'm right there with you, except for I feel like this book is going to be all vague, and it's only going to get specific when Kindt needs to take a twist on an idea that he feels like he's already informed you about. Like, I think he's relying on the idea that people kind of know who Wolverine is and is just leading on that. And then when he wants to twist things, he'll add details, but otherwise it's going to be vague. He's done this with his other books and it's worked out well, but it to me feels like just kind of his standard MO at this point. So yeah, I bought this book specifically so we could have this argument on the episode, and now we're done talking about it. So I'm not going to talk about it during my reads.
Yeah.
There's more to be said, I think. And we'll look at it, I think, as the issues come out, probably. I don't think this is the last time we're going to be talking about BRZRKR.
Yeah, that's fair.
Was there anything else that you read this week that you wanted to talk about very quickly, Nick?
Yeah, very quickly. I want to say I read Star Wars Volume 12, Rebels and Rogues, written by Greg Pak, art by Phil Noto, letters by Clayton Cowles. Or is that how we're supposed to
say?
Cowles?
Oh, we all had different pronunciations.
Like coals in a fire?
Yes.
Okay, sure. So this is not to be confused with Volume 13, Rogues and Rebels. Some fucking editor or someone thought it would be really funny to call Volume 12 Rebels and Rogues and Volume 13 Rogues and Rebels with basically the exact same artistic team on both volumes. Someone thought that was funny. Let me tell you, I had 2 minutes of trying to look up information for these books, and it got all muddled because someone thought this would be funny. It's not funny. very weird because you've got Greg Pak. He's only given 7 issues to do what he wants with Star Wars, which is a little weird because Jason Aaron got the first 37 issues. Kieran Gillen got 38 through 67. That's not even including 4 or 5 annuals that the two of them got to write between those points. Greg Pak doesn't get any annuals, and he's given 7 issues, which is kind of like when you're the kid at the end of the class where they're giving presentations and they're just trying to cram in your presentation before the end of the class period. And they're like, I know you prepared 10 minutes, but you've got 2. So can you do this? Like, can you do this? And Greg Pak is like, all right, fine. Like, I've got some really fucking wild ideas. So there's like no preamble. Like, the beginning of the book is the big general guy going, all right, I got 4 different missions. These are your assignments. Go to these planets because I don't fucking know. The Emperor and the Empire, they're trying to find us and we got to throw them off our scent, right? Like, that's it. And it's just right out of the gate, like literally within 1 page. He's like, go to these planets because stupid Marvel editorial only gave me 7 issues and I'm definitely not wasting any time. And to be honest, I enjoyed this a lot. Like, he teams up 3PO with Chewbacca, which seems kind of weird, but basically Chewbacca actually respects 3PO, which is wild. And I think maybe that's because it only confirms my suspicion that Han Solo does not actually know what Chewbacca is saying, and 3PO actually does. And this only further confirms this theory. Han ends up with Leia because will they, won't they, sexual tension. It's probably getting really annoying to the rebel forces to have to put up with it. So he's like, you two need to just be by yourselves because I don't want to put up with this shit. And the last thing I'll say is, honestly, he's got some really wild aliens in this. He's got these like stone creatures that are kind of like Tony Chu and Chew, except instead of eating things and learning their past, these stone creatures, when they touch metal, they're able to like understand the past history of that metal. So they basically touch 3PO and you get like 2 pages of like all of the bad shit that's happened to 3PO up to that point. Brother. And they're like, dude, like, you do really want to go back to the humans? Like, we've seen what's happened to you.
Right.
That seems like Nick, a bad idea. Nick. Anyway.
We gotta keep going. We've already given you 15 minutes to talk about BRZRKR.
I loved it. I don't know how Greg Pak managed to do so much with so little time, but I've enjoyed it.
Cool. Kara, how about you? How have you been? How have comic books been? Now that sorry, I should have waited to put BRZRKR last. That's what I should have done.
No,
I'm sorry.
It's cool. I mean, right up front, you're letting people know where you're at, where you're both at right now.
Yeah.
All right. So I got to bring the tone down for a minute. For which I apologize in advance. In the past month, both my remaining living grandparents died. And this relates to comics, I promise.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear that, Kara. I mean, I knew,
but got some tonal whiplash here. But
yeah, tonal whiplash. I'm sorry. You asked how I am.
It's okay.
That's really coloring everything. Yeah. So for listeners from the future, for posterity's sake, for context, this past month and a half, we have all been watching WandaVision unfold week to week. Did Disney know that I would need a show about processing grief slowly unfolds around me as I processed grief myself during a global pandemic? I don't know. All I'm saying is that the polar vortex also hit the winter we had Frozen come out. So you know what? So it was just like unexpectedly a helpful way to contextualize the grief that's happening in my family now through watching this fictionalized processing of grief. So I was one of the people who was a little like, oh, there is a villain? Because like for the majority of the show, it looked like grief itself was the villain. And you know, like now that we have the finale, it's a little more nuanced than that. But like that was a helpful lens through which to process things. Did I emotionally project myself into Scarlet Witch's conflict? Probably, yeah. But, you know, that is what fiction is for, to help us consider our own lives through new lenses. And so... Absolutely.
Wait, is that what we're supposed to be doing with it?
Yes, Nick.
Yes, Nick. Yes.
So when it came time to, like, potentially reading some comics, I was like, oh, man, I really just kind of want to stay in this Scarlet Witch headspace and see what they got. And I had totally forgotten there was a Scarlet Witch series a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So the first volume of that is called Scarlet Witch, Witch's Road. And it's very focused just on Wanda, and she's going on this journey to fix witchcraft. Like, witchcraft is broken, there's a mystery going on. And I had read this when it came out, but clearly did not absorb any of it because Agatha is a character in this comic book and also on the show. And I just I did not know who she was when they were like, that's Agatha. I'm like, what? Who? Because
minor spoilers for WandaVision. We'll just say that. How about that?
So reading the comic was interesting because the first volume is 5 issues. And each of the issues was illustrated by a different artist. So in each of the issues, Wanda's in a different location and a different artist is illustrating it. And there's even like a couple issues where within her new location, she goes into like a magical subsection of that location, and that has another artist. So it's very easy to follow her jumps in space-time reality because they do these different art delineations, and it's a really lovely way to see a lot of different artists showcased in the same book with the same writer as the through line. And in that regard, it did remind me of WandaVision, the show, because of each of the episodes in the show being like a different sitcom style. And so that was like a nice reflection that I wasn't sure if was intentional or not. And another weird thing, which I'm pretty sure was not intentional, was there's a villain in this comic who experienced grief and reacted to it by murdering a whole bunch of people. And that was like supposed to be the overarching big bad, but the way it was executed in the comic didn't quite work. And seeing how WandaVision, the show, approached the idea of dealing with grief and thinking that you're doing the right thing for everybody when it's really just the right thing for you and it's hurting other people, I was kind of frustrated at the missed opportunity for there to be like a counterpoint. Like, okay, if you did have to bring in a villain, why not a villain who did the same kind of experience as you, but like totally took it to a different extreme as a contrast.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think the Scarlet Witch comic is definitely worth a read. The one thing I have a real problem with it, besides the unrealized potential of the overarching plot, is there's like a few references to Wanda being depressed and being on medication for that. And all of those panels are done in black and white, in contrast to the full color of the rest of the book. And I don't feel like the tone was quite there in terms of them being like, yeah, like she's dealing with depression and she's like on medication and she's on a plan and she's doing that. It made it more like, oh, you have depression? Are you broken? And just like any kind of like shaming people for being depressed. I'm like, can we not? Like, it's 2021. Right. Some people have things to deal with. Like, come on.
Right.
So, yeah, I think if you liked WandaVision and want more Scarlet Witch, this is an interesting place to drop in, because I feel like no spoilers, but by the end of WandaVision, I feel like we're just starting to see Scarlet Witch on her journey. And this felt like almost possibly that same character, but many years down the line. Like, it felt like they were still connected as a character through the different mediums and creative teams.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I've been sitting on this book for a long time. I've been meaning to read it. So I think you've just convinced me to put it on the top of my to-read list.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great. I think it's interesting. And it's definitely good if you just want a focused Scarlet Witch book, because I feel like most of the stuff she's in, it's in the context of a team, which is something she even like admits in the first few pages of this series. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, so I'll take a look at that.
Me. How about you, Mike?
Well, I read BRZRKR.
We know. we're pretty aware, Mike.
It was an event.
The other book that I read, though, that I do want to talk about, This is SFSX Volume 1, aka Safe Sex Volume 1. This is written by Tina Horn with art by Michael Dowling, Alejandra Gutierrez, and Jen Hickman, with rotating throughout the book, which is really interesting. This is a very in-your-face book about the faults in modern white feminism taken to an extreme, and it's extremely terrifying and addicting to read. I sat down not really knowing what this book was about, because in my head I thought it was about like sex workers who are like vigilantes or something, but it is terrifying. It is genuinely about like a future world where, you know, this radical, like, it's like turf style feminism is like running rampant and is oppressed, has like overruled like the patriarchy, but in like the worst way possible, as it is suppressing people who want to explore themselves and their gender and their sexuality, and basically saying, you know, like, if you want to be trans, that's against the law. If you want to have sex in a way that's not permitted by the government, that's illegal. If you want to use sex toys, that's legal. Everybody has a purity score. It is scary shit. And I think Tina Horn takes this kind of mentality that I think you could get out of a book like Bitch Planet and really drives it home in such a way that you kind of, it's scary how close to reality is. And I think everybody who read Bitch Planet goes, that seems pretty close to where we are right now. Like, safe sex is so close to reality right now that I finished the book going, oh my God, we're only 2 or 3 steps away from that. And again, this would imply like a whole drastic change in government and all this other stuff. But that being said, like, some of the policies and ideas that they are talking about in this book are not far from some of the policies and ideas that you see being passed in like the American and, you know, European world, or I guess the Western world in general. So it was a really interesting read. It's not just about like the political side of things, but that's a key component, as the main character that we follow, her name is Avery, goes from this life of being a sex worker who is married, or who is with a partner, to someone that has to get married in order to be like considered okay by the world. And her life as a sex worker was like in this underground place where people could come and go freely, and, you know, you could get whatever fetish you want. And then of course the government breaks in and arrests everybody except for Avery. She manages to get away, so everyone is upset that, you know, she managed to get away when others didn't. There's a whole mind washing thing. There's a lot that goes on in this book. And for 6 issues, I couldn't stop reading. I was really, really impressed just with this whole book. And like I said, if you're looking for something that gets you riled up like Bitch Planet, I think this is a really, really good next read. Yeah, I really enjoyed this book, and I want to see more of it. I don't know where they could go with more of it, but if it's like more stories in this world, I'd be really interested to see what Tina Horn and her, cadre of creators do next, because this is a wonderful book. If you're looking to get into something that's going to just get your blood boiling. But yeah, if you guys get a chance, I highly recommend check that out. So, but let's move on. Let's talk about comic books that are coming out this upcoming week. Comics are dropping on March 10th, 2021. What are you both excited for this week? I'm going to start with you, Nick.
Sure. So to just keep this brief, this week, not a lot of stuff coming out. There was one thing I was kind of interested in. It's not the new Black Hammer Visions book. Sorry, I don't need a Jeff Johns, Scott Collins Black Hammer issue. Doesn't sound that interesting to me. Whatever. I'll leave it at that. Especially after having to follow the first issue, I would not want to do it. Wouldn't want to do it. Don't really have a lot of faith in the current team. End of story. I am excited for Rogue Planet. This is the collected volume of the Oni book by Cullen Bunn, who of course wrote Magneto, Sixth Gun, Moon Knight. Anything you like, he's written it. I'm not going to say he wrote the best version of whatever you liked. I do strongly believe his best work is his own creative original properties.
Agreed.
Art's by Andy McDonald. I guess McDonald has done Voltron, Justice League, colors by Nick Filardi. So here's basically the promotional summary from an interview Cullen Bunn gave. Quote, the plotline follows the noble crew of the salvage vessel Cortez as they track down the lonely orphan, a mysterious, untethered planet with no star system to call its home. Somewhere on this hostile rock is a valuable payload too rich to ignore, but to acquire it, members of the Cortez must brave razor-sharp terrain, noxious vapors, perilous footing, and the most terrifying horrors imaginable. So basically you have a salvage vessel, you have people trying to do their last big mission, trying to get a big score. It's basically Alien, okay? It's Alien. I have to get my fix somewhere because Dark Horse isn't allowed to make alien books anymore, and in a lot of places you can't
okay,
even
Nick?
buy them. Yeah, no, not. I'm not okay. I promise. And obviously there's an alien book on the horizon from Marvel. It looks like hot garbage. Yeah. So this is where I'm gonna get my kicks until then, I suppose. So and then of course,
Wow.
Cullen Bunn lists a bunch of movies that inspired him, and I'm like, okay, like I get it. Like I love those movies too. Who knows if you're gonna live up to that? But
What movies?
Yeah. So he's like, I love Event Horizon. I'm like, me too. And I'm not so sure this is going to be Event Horizon, but
sure,
we'll see.
So hold
we'll
on.
See.
This isn't an alien book, but it's called Rogue Planet, and it sounds exactly like an alien book.
Yeah, I suppose that's
Okay.
what you do when you don't want to get sued.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly like the Jeff Lemire book that he did that was definitely Conan the Barbarian, but wasn't Conan the Barbarian, right?
What was that called? Yeah, I know what you mean.
Anyways, so okay,
Yep,
well, this sounds interesting.
We'll see.
I'd be curious to see what this book is. You'll have to give me a deeper review once you actually get a chance to read this, because this sounds very interesting, especially if it's going to be just a one and done kind of series.
Yeah, it does appear to be. I tried to get a more definitive answer on that, and it does seem like it's one and done. Yeah.
Gotcha. Oh, Danny in the chat just said that Jeff Lemire book I was talking about is called Berserk, or Berserker Unbound. That's what it is. Thank you, Cinco. Anyways, Kara, what about you? What are you excited for this week?
So there is a new Thor and Loki book called Double Trouble #1. The creative team is Mariko Tamaki and Gurihiru, and apparently they teamed up for a previous Double Trouble book that I wasn't aware of, but this just looks like a fun, potentially all ages romp kind of situation that's not really tied down to too much mythology. I mean that in both the ancient and the modern sense of the word.
Well, I mean, given how serious I think all the Thor books have been recently, this sounds like a breath of fresh air.
Right. Like I've tried reading Thor comics and he's just not fun. And and even before oh god, I'm not going to pronounce this right. Taika, how do we say his last name? Who did
Taika
Ragnarok?
Waititi?
Yeah. Like even before he did Ragnarok, Thor was funny in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I always was like, yes, that makes sense. Thor is the fish out of water. He is like the lovable oaf. He's just like the football guy that just wants everybody to get along. I'm here for this. And then in the comics, he's like, I must help Asgard. And you're like, calm down, bro. What? So, the cover for Thor and Loki Double Trouble and the creative team indicate to me that this might be the fun romp of the kind of which I would like from Thor and Loki. Like they're brothers who don't get along but love each other, and they're just going to bug each other the whole time. Let's do it. Like, why don't we have more of this? So that's me. And Mike, what I'm going to need from you now is to tell me why a comic book called Children of the Atom is not about the Atom or Captain Atom from DC Comics, but is in fact a Marvel book. How, Mike?
Yeah.
Why?
I'm happy to talk about that. First thing I want to say, though, is that when I saw the title for this book, Thor and Loki, all I could think of was the Mary-Kate and Ashley television film. I don't know why.
Oh,
like the made-for-TV Mary-Kate and Ashley movie, Double Trouble. It's a Halloween movie. I don't know why that came to my head.
Maybe
I
it's
just
the same vibe, you know?
Yeah. So, anyways, I just I don't know why that came to my head. Yeah, and I'm hoping that maybe that's what this book is going to be. It's just going to be them having fun adventures on Halloween. Yeah, with Mary-Kate and Ashley. Anyways, I guess, before we get into my pick, as we've been doing for the last couple of weeks, it's 2021. We want people to read comic books. We want to help you read comic books. So if you share the show on social media, on Instagram or Twitter, and make sure to tag us, you could be entered to win a $20 gift card to Comixology, Midtown Comics, or your local comic book shop if they offer it. So make sure you share the show on Twitter and Instagram. It really genuinely helps us. Whether or not you're getting a gift card, getting more people to listen to the show only means that the I Read Comic Books community can grow even bigger. I mean, our Goodreads group is exploding, but I want the Discord group to be as big as the Goodreads group. You know what I mean? Anyways, I do want to talk about our Discord picks from this week. This week, our Discord picks, I'm going to give people time give me an answer here, but Danny said that he's reading God of War Fallen God #1, and Cinco's on the
Cinco and I are fighting
bridge.
because I stole all his picks.
Yeah, he picked Thor, Loki, Double Trouble, and then he wanted to pick Children of the Atom. It's okay. You got 2 picks. That's fine. You can break all the rules too. I believe in you. But for me, my pick this week is Children of the Atom as well. This is by Vita Ayala with pencils and inks by Bernard Chang with colors by Marcelo Maiolo. The story is about teenage superheroes featuring the X-Men. I don't know what this book is about, but I'm ready. Vita rarely disappoints. Everything they do is solid gold, and I think that they do like such a good job writing like teenage characters. This is the new Craig Kyle Chris Yost style, like new X-Men Academy X stuff that really got me to fall in love and believe in like B and C list characters. I'm very excited to see what Vita does with this book, because whatever it is, I'm sure that it's going to be a lot of fun. Like their run on New Mutants right now is probably like, it's growing to become my favorite X-Men book next to Hellions. Like, let's see if this book can kick some bucks. I'm very excited for it. So Children of the Atom #1, that's my pick. Very excited to see what happens with this. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be doing something really wild, because this is an audio podcast, and we're going to be talking about completely visual things. So when we come back, we're going to try to judge a book by its cover. We'll be back in just a second.
All right, welcome back from the break. Mike has decided that he wants no part of this topic, so I'm just going to get into it. So we all do this thing, and we all think, nah, I'm above that. I'm a comic fan. I know what I'm doing. But we all judge the book by its cover. And it might not be an overt thing where you're like, that cover is garbage, I'm not buying that book. But you're at your local comic shop, or you're browsing Comixology or Hoopla, you're looking at that art. The comic book medium is a visual medium. It is a purely visual medium. And when you are trying to decide what to spend your hard-earned money on for 10 minutes of entertainment, depending on if you read as fast as I do, you are going to make some choices that are snap decisions made on what that book looks like. And then that might be your cue to like read a little more and maybe make your decision from there. But there is that snap visual judgment. So because Mike likes talking about stuff and Nick really likes talking about covers, I thought it would be interesting for us to all come together and judge some covers. We're just gonna talk about some comic book covers. We've each selected a few. And the person who selected it is going to ask the people who didn't select it to briefly describe the cover and to make a judgment. What do you think is this book about? Would you read this book? Is this book for you or for perhaps somebody else? Because these are the things that we're all kind of thinking about subconsciously when we're scanning the racks. So...
And I'll make sure to drop all of these in the show notes for folks, just so that you can, dig through and read along, or I guess look along with us.
Yeah. So we're going to start with a pretty simple one. So I'm going to have you guys go and take a look at Selina's Big Score. It's the cover from Selina's Big Score. So
okay,
you guys just go on and take a look at that one and tell the listeners what you see.
What is this? A cover for ants?
Look,
sorry,
I couldn't
very
find.
Small.
Look, I tried really,
image.
really hard to find a version of this cover that didn't have blurbs all over it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I guess what we're looking at here is we're looking at like a standard DC Comics cover, because it has a big DC logo, like the old DC logo before they did like the sticker peel away thing.
It's the bullet.
Yeah, the bullet. That's what it's called. We've got Catwoman in a very nice dress. I think this looks like Darwin Cook, maybe. There is like a moving background. Maybe they're on the top of a train. Selina's standing over a pile of money. There are 2 fellas standing behind her. One guy's got a cigarette in his mouth, so he's cool and the bad guy. And then another guy has sunglasses and a gun, but he's kind of smiling, so he might be a friend. Yeah.
What a great description,
Nick, what are
Mike.
your thoughts?
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on this, Nick?
There's money flying everywhere. There's definitely sort of like a 1980s color palette. In my opinion, you got like some purples and pinks going on. Her outfit looks very 80s. I don't know.
I would call this early 90s, maybe.
Oh, sure. We can split the difference on that. That's fair.
Sure.
The hair is like very cool. It's Darwin Cook because Darwin Cook actually knows how to draw Selina Kyle / Catwoman in a way that makes her look cool, but also not like exploitative.
Right.
Which is something that so few people seem at all capable of doing. So respect to Darwin Cook, rest in peace. He's always had this sensibility of kind of, I mean, I know a lot of artists don't like being called retro, but it's like very
pin-up-y.
Retro modern. It's very clean lines.
I'd call it neo-retrofuturism.
Oh my God.
All right.
So what can you glean about what kind of assumptions can you make about this story behind this cover?
Sure. So,
I mean, there's clearly a railroad track sign. I don't know why I said I think they're on a train. They're definitely on a train.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm guessing it's like a train heist or something. But since Selina's not in her costume on the cover, I'm thinking that this is going to be more of a like heist than just her breaking and entering. That's my guess.
And based on that, what you said, Mike, I would also say that I think this is going to be not very Supes oriented. Like,
Agreed.
I don't think any other superhero characters are going to come into play with this. I don't think any of that. I think it's just going to be her. And the only thing we're probably taking from the Catwoman history is that we know that Selina is someone who performs heists and, is always looking for the next big score. And no pun intended, obviously, with the title. It just happened. I wasn't even looking at it. It must have been subconsciously. And like that's probably the only part of the DC canon that we're actually working with, I would say.
Yeah.
Well, as someone who has read this book multiple times, may I say, well done. You nailed it. You have described the basic plot and characters of the book. And that's why I chose this cover, because I think this cover is one of the better examples of how to convey the beats of what is inside without really giving away what's going to happen. So Good job. Based on this cover, is this a book you might pick up?
I mean, as someone who is a big comic book reader, I mean, Darwin Cook. So yes. I'm pretty sure I own this book already. I just haven't read it yet.
As someone who is kind of a big deal.
As someone who knows stuff about things.
I mean, I'm a big comic book reader. Is that incorrect?
No, it's just really funny that you're just like, I have eyes and Darwin Cook slaps, so of course I'm gonna read this.
Good.
I love it. That's perfect.
All right. Good job, guys. Now you get what we're doing. So one of you tell us a cover to look at.
Okay, so I want you guys to look at Rest #1.
Okay.
This is a book that came out in like 2010.
Oh, no.
I thought it was really, really cool.
Oh no.
There's stuff happening here, Mike.
So this is Rest #1, but I also think it's also the cover to 0.
Okay.
So yeah, it says 0. When I Googled it for 1, this is what came up. So based off of this, tell the people what you guys
What do we
Ooh,
see?
This is a good one, Mike. This is a good one.
So
Ooh.
we got some visual. It's really like a half split, but it's more like quadrants because there's it's like a cross situation going on visually. So we've got the upper left quadrant, which has a dude in a suit, and there's just flames behind him, but not coming out of his head. And there's a clock behind him. So maybe he's like running out of time. And then we're shifted over to the top
I think
right.
The clock is on fire. Is the clock on fire?
The clock might be on fire. And then we shift to the right quadrant where the colors are cooler toned. There's all these pills dropping down. And as we follow the line of the pills dropping down, we see might be the same dude, might be a different dude running and towards the camera. And behind him, it's what turns this into quadrants. There's like these little outlines of dudes in suits with briefcases marching in a line. And then the bottom 2 quadrants are just kind of there. But because of the division of the marching dudes, there is that that split in the screen, as it were. Yeah. Nick, do you have anything to add about the description?
I mean, it kind of looks like somebody made like modern art collage, and then they're like, what does this mean? And it's like, you made this. Yeah, there's a lot of elements, like they all sort of bleed into each other, and like Kara mentioned quadrants, but like it's quadrants very loosely. Like things just sort of like all of the elements kind of just intermesh in ways that like don't allow them to stay within their own confines. But
someone had fun with layers.
Yeah, but it looks like we've probably got someone who's like a businessman. You've got, I thought there was a briefcase, but I mean, I guess there are briefcases in the little silhouettes, but everybody looks very business formal. So I'm guessing we got like some businessmen. Kara mentioned the falling pills, so I'd imagine we've got some person who's like a businessman, but like he's also got an addiction because
he's got an addiction and he's running out of time.
You gotta work real hard, and in order to work real hard, you gotta take 5-hour energy, and if that doesn't work, you move on to stronger things. I don't know.
Oh my god, this is dark.
Okay,
there's darkness, and
yeah,
but I agree. He's like running. He's like kind of running away from and through the pills. So I agree with the addiction concept. But the dudes in suits, I'm like, is he part of the pharmaceutical industry? Is he trying to get away from it all? This clock on fire is like a huge, like, shit's happening.
Someone who's running out of time. I see that as like a running out of time.
Right. But also
symbol.
Because DC
and it's almost midnight, right? If you look.
Right. But that's why I'm saying this is not a DC comic, but because DC won't shut the fuck up about Watchmen, I am trained now in comics to view clocks close to midnight.
All clocks are
as
doomsday clocks.
Doomsday clocks.
Okay. I like
Mike?
where you guys are going with a lot of these ideas. So
Okay.
I'm curious what do you guys think this book is about then, based off of the why? I mean, I did really pick a wild cover, and that was intentional. But I
love it.
Even if I would have picked the standard covers, you guys would have had less understanding of what this book's about.
Oh my god, are you serious?
What do you think this book is about?
I think it's about a dude who is addicted to these pills that are making him just like literally burn out, but he's got something important to do on the way, and it's a race against time between him and the addiction, and possibly he's trying to bring down some kind of corporate structure as part of this plot.
And I think you're also going to have a Scarface getting high on your own supply sort of situation where he's also working for the pharmacy industry that he's addicted to.
Gotcha. Okay, well, you guys are way off.
Oh, no.
Oh, Jesus. Are you serious?
So this story is about...
Oh, no.
I want to say the reason I got into this book is because I was really into Heroes at the time, okay?
The show.
What?
This book...
The show.
Listen.
The show?
I was really into the show Heroes, right? The NBC show. Milo Ventimiglia, who was played Peter, I believe, on that show, produced this comic.
Stop.
With some production company. And it's about a guy who he meets up with a college friend who's like, hey, you should come in for this test, this drug trial to earn some money, because I know that you've got nothing going on with your life. And the drug itself allows you you take it once a day and you don't have to sleep. And the idea is that this thing replaces sleep. And as this guy learns more about this pharmaceutical company, what they plan to do, they're trying to turn the day into like a 16-hour workforce because you don't have to sleep. And he starts to uncover all this mysterious stuff about what these pills are.
Fiverr already exists. People already work for Fiverr.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, so it's basically him just uncovering some giant human conspiracy about this pill, and how it like dates back to forever. It's a wild book, but yes, time is the essence. He's trying to run away. These pills are crucial. Everyone's taking them.
So he's not addicted.
He's not addicted, but I think once you start to take the pills, you can't stop taking them. I think he finds out.
That's
again, I read this book like 10 years ago. So I guess technically he's addicted, but yeah, he's trying to stop this company from mass producing these pills. And I believe there's like some threat of the person he gets the pills from is like, well, I could just stop giving them to you.
We were kind of close, Mike.
I guess I just wanted you guys to be wrong. Okay.
Okay. Your turn, Nick.
It's a weird book. It's a weird book. Yeah, Nick, give us something.
Give us a
No,
title.
that actually sounds pretty good. All right, so both of you can go ahead and take a look at WWE #1. And
Oh my God.
Mike, go ahead and
Hold
paste that in the chat.
Nick, god damn it.
Fuck you, Nick.
I said you aren't allowed to do this.
Look, I didn't make the rules
all right.
for this.
Kara, describe this cover, and then
Oh.
Nick's going to actually give us a real cover.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. So
I didn't.
Nick
I
has
didn't-
given us.
This wasn't my idea. I
Nick-
didn't make.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nick gave us the void, the blank
Nick gave us-
expanse of nothingness that is.
Nick gave us the blank variant cover for WWE #1, which I will say
How
was a
dare
joke
you?
that I made to him when we were talking.
This is your fault,
Okay.
Mike.
This is my fault. I put the evil idea
All
in
right,
Nick's
all
head.
right.
Well,
So it's a blank
I had the idea,
cover.
and
No,
Mike said
stop
this
it.
is okay.
No, we're gonna
No.
do this. You chose this path. So this is a
Okay.
blank cover. It is white. It is devoid of everything except for, I guess this is the updated WWE logo. I haven't seen it since
Right.
the 90s.
Yeah,
And
used to be WWF.
what I can tell about this book is that it is likely about the WWE, which is a wrestling organization.
Mhm.
And the blank expanse tells me that it is a story upon which I can just project whatever shit's going on in my life onto what's happening in this book, because life is meaningless anyways. Is this the kind of nihilism you wanted from today, Nick?
Yeah. So Kara, I'm right there with you. I feel like the expanse, the endless borders of this cover mean that anything is possible. Like in the comic book medium, you can draw anything that you want, and fiction becomes reality when you do that. People may fall deep into the ideas of this story, with the WWE being a facade on play upon the expanded possibilities and imagination that people have in the ring. As you watch on TV, you realize that it is all a charade, and yet at the same time you believe and you root for the people who you love and care about who are in the ring. They know the outcome of the match, but you as the viewer don't, and therefore you make your own assumptions about everything. You grow as the characters grow and tell their stories. This WWE blank variant speaks to me in such a way that says that, again, anything is possible, and whatever we make of this world and of this comic is possible.
Okay, so I'm not going to pick up this book because I do not care for wrestling, and I am now mad at Boom based on what you told me about BRZRKR.
Yes. I'm going to pick up this book only to burn it just in front of Nick. I know that would hurt Paul, but it's a sacrifice that I'm willing to make. Nick, will you pick a book that actually isn't a blank variant, you evil son of a bitch?
Different one, Nick. God.
I was gonna say, Danny's like, I need this book.
Nick, give us the cover.
Yeah, okay, so let's do everything volume 1. Mike, I know you've read this, but I'm very curious to see what Kara
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, so
takes out of
go
this.
for it.
So, this cover, stark contrast to the void, is
Not as good. I know you don't need to say it. I'll say it. Not as good.
You go sit in the corner, Nick. Think about what you've done. So, everything #1, the cover, there is a woman who has she's staring right at you. She's the center of this cover. Her stare is unnerving because it's like slightly wide-eyed, and one of her eyes is in fact glowing green and shooting greenness out towards you. And fluttering around her are all of these signs that say sale. And it's kind of making me feel like this woman wants me to buy things or else. And I don't like it.
Interesting.
She's got like a turtleneck on and a collared shirt, and I see underneath the credits bar with who wrote and drew the book, that she's got like a name tag. So this tells me she is an employee of a store that wants me to buy everything. So I'm going to judge this cover as a commentary about Amazon.
Okay.
I like that.
Right.
Or Costco even.
Yeah, I just, you know what? I have to wonder why her hair is drawn the way that it is, because it kind of looks like her hair is looped in under itself. And for a minute that threw me off and made me think, like, is this a Star Trek thing? Like, this is a space hairdo. But now I see that the artist just can't draw women's hair. So that threw me for a minute. How am I doing? Is this an Amazon commentary?
Well, the good thing, Kara, is that everyone else here, I'm looking at the chat, has actually read this book, which means I can divulge certain amounts without really being too worried.
We are recording this to go out to people that may have not read this book.
Oh,
so
true enough. So I will hedge my bets here.
No spoilers.
So you're not entirely wrong. It is sort of a book about consumerism. It takes place in the 80s at a department store in the Midwest. The store is literally called Everything. Am I recalling that right?
You're right. You're right.
Oh gosh, I was like suddenly had that moment of oh my god, what if I have that wrong?
With the store stuff, I was just projecting a little bit with making it about Amazon because we were talking about Mike's Alexa.
It kind of is. I mean, I think it's more of a commentary on
a big chain,
Walmart.
Yeah, big chains that kind of destroy small towns.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And sort of some of the stuff that you mentioned about the eye, about the hair seeming a little bit weird and unnatural. You're not entirely wrong. There are some things going on with this character that are not normal. I think Mike will agree that I should just leave it there.
Her
and
eye
not...
is glowing. What part of normal is this?
Look, a lot of medications have little side effects here and there. They go away within a week. I've been on things where my eye glows sporadically for a couple...
Nick,
what?
Yes.
No, wait. I thought you were about to say, well, you know what? In the Midwest, and then I was just going to lose it.
In the Midwest, this happens all the time, and we don't complain about it. And yeah, no. I think you've got the core conceit pretty far.
I would not pick up
close.
this book because this woman looks terrifying, and I have enough of being terrified by capitalism in the meantime. Sorry, not capitalism, consumerism. Consumerism is the word I want.
Yeah, this book definitely amps that up.
Yep,
quite a bit. I'll say that.
All right. I want you guys to look at Sword of the Atom #1, please.
Okay.
I would love your reactions for Sword of the Atom #1.
Oh God. Nick, do you want to give the full description here, and I'll add my feedback once you're done?
God. Yeah, I'll try. I don't know if anyone's gonna do this justice. I mean, they've got the comic code thing off to the side, but I'm not so sure if this didn't void that. This is
Nick.
So. It says it's Sword of the Atom at the top. We know that it's a miniseries. We've got the DC Bullet, so we know this comic is clearly pretty dated. Also, it says it's 60 cents, so definitely dated. Guess they're not going to hold the line at 60 cents. In terms of visual elements, we've got a lot going on here. We have a superhero. This person appears to be riding a frog. This person also has a sword. It looks like they're about to do combat with, just off to the left of it, what looks like a cobra. I mean, I would go out on a limb here and say, if we're talking about the atom, we know that the atom can get very small. So I'm assuming this is definitely one of those Atom, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids sort of situations.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, no joke. Probably would read this, even though it's clearly depicting nature, which is always terrifying to me.
Well,
so
okay,
I will.
What do you think it's about?
Yeah, so I just want to say, like, this book is very on the nose, and I appreciate it. Like, this is the atom. This is the sword of the atom. So I appreciate that while the atom is holding a sword, he's riding a frog, he's fighting a cobra. Like, all of this definitely screams like action adventure, but on a small scale. I probably would check this out if I could borrow it, but I don't think I would buy this book because it like I can already tell that it's going to be just kind of dumb, but in a good way, like in a fun way. Yeah, if it's just the Atom fighting like snakes and stuff, that's interesting. Probably pretty boring, but I'm guessing that there's probably more story here because I feel like books in the 60s were way more action packed than the content sometimes, or 80s, excuse me. Or definitely had more action on the covers than in the actual book itself. I'm certain that this is not just going to be the Atom riding around on a frog the entire time.
How do you
as
know?
exciting as that may be, like Lone Ranger style, it's the Atom riding around on this frog. Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
What about you, Nick? I don't know. Would you pick this book up?
I mean, like, it's got some things like that I'm very terrified of. Being outdoors is one, and then following that, being outdoors and being very small within nature, like, so that's like kind of a no for me. But I love the idea that someone said, how do we riff on the Atom? And someone else in the room, who I don't know, maybe they were drunk, was like, what if the twist is he has a sword? And someone was like, yeah, but his powers are being small. Maybe we should do something around that. Maybe he can make things big or small. I don't know. Maybe that's Ant-Man and we're infringing. But then someone else was, no, fuck you, sword. And
yes,
and that's what happened. And I love it for that because that just seems so dumb. I love it.
Okay.
I am going to read you the blurb from the DC fandom wiki about Sword of the
please.
Atom. It is described as a major storyline featuring the Atom, Ray Palmer. After discovering his longtime lover, Jean Loring, cheated on him, Ray left Ivytown and soon found himself stranded in microscopic size in the Amazon rainforest. There, he had adventures with the alien Princess Laithwen in the realm of Morlade.
Oh my god!
So there's nothing about the sword. Like, that just goes...
Yeah, the sword's not even in the description. Okay.
I mean, basically, they take this character, the Atom, who is like part of this whole space age, oh my god, we have nuclear power now, superheroes thing. He's like a I think, biology professor at what is clearly supposed to be Harvard or MIT. And instead, in this book, he's like, ugh, my lover has cheated on me. Angst, I'm gonna run away to the Amazon because what else do you do? And then he got small and met an alien princess and had sword and sorcery adventures, even though he is a nuclear age hero. Like, duh.
Sure.
Sword
and sorcery, I guess.
If this is a normal sword or not.
Yeah. Nick, I think you need to read the series to find out. So we're running out of time. We should get to one more cover each, I think. So I'm going to pick one of my covers. Yep. I'm just going to jump into this, and I'm going to, just to spite Nick,
okay.
I want to pick Dead Drop #1.
Okay.
So I want you guys to check out Dead Drop #1 and tell me what you think.
First of all, how dare you pick a book that says on the cover a virus on the loose? I am living that life right now, Mike, and I hate it.
I know. I'm evil. I'm sorry.
On the other hand, Alesh Kott, yes. 100% yes. All right, I'm not looking at the creative team anymore. So,
yeah, let's describe this. Yeah,
describe the cover. Dead Drop. I am looking at straight down on a street view of what is likely Manhattan because it's a grid, and then the diagonal street suggests Broadway to me. And there's a dude dressed as a superhero that is just, I'm gonna say, falling. Like, he could be flying, but his attitude suggests more falling or just kind of like lying down after having fallen. Like, his arms are spread out, lying on top of one of the cross streets, and his legs are kind of spread in that he's on that diagonal street. So he's very much like on top of, but not of, the map that we are looking at. So this to me suggests some kind of superhero dealing with a situation that he's out of his depth on, that takes place in an urban environment where that looks like little cop cars darting around. on the streets. So I'm going to say he's really in over his head. And perhaps the authorities are looking for him and he doesn't know what to do. So he's just lying there. I mean.
Okay. Nick, I couldn't remember if you read this book or not.
I've it's been a while, but I mean, Kara got it all. I mean, that's what I would say. She failed to mention that it's Iron Man, but
it looks like Iron Man. Yeah, this is definitely in New York City. It's Broadway and 7th, where they intersect.
And it's got that blue tone of like a draftsman's drawing,
like a schematic or something like that. Yeah. I mean, I guess based on this cover, would you pick this up? I mean, Nick, I know you already bought it and read it, but like, Kara, what are you thinking?
I might be convinced to pick this up if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic.
Sure.
Because visually, it's a very striking cover. And I do like Alesh Kott's work. So just like the cover would have grabbed my attention. And then when I got closer and saw the creative team, I would be like, yeah, this fucks. Yeah. Let me get this.
Yeah, I mean, I think pointing out the interiors for this book are not
the same as the cover.
Okay, if we start talking about covers that are complete lies in terms of art, we'll just be here all day talking about Kevin Wada. So
it's a different that's a different subject. Yeah. Right. What's interesting, I mean, obviously the virus context of this on the cover here is a little bit busted because we're, in the COVID times. But this it's funny because this is about like a biological weapon derived from like a technological virus or something like that. So it's kind of, it's all in bad taste, actually, now that we think about it. But yeah, you pretty much nailed it. I mean, the opening of this book is this guy dropping into New York City and he's trying to find this USB key. And it's interesting because I think Alesh Kott read the same article that I did about these things called dead drops.
Oh, yeah.
And they're basically like USB ports and stuff like that people like put all over cities.
Like behind like hidden bricks and walls and stuff like that. Yeah.
Where you can like download information from just like someone has a computer behind a brick wall, like embedded into a brick wall, and you plug in a USB drive and it does the thing. So it's pretty wild. But yeah, okay.
All right,
that's fine.
It does. The cover does give the idea that it is sort of like a very, like geographically, it's a romp across New York, and it is.
Yeah, it is,
and it nails that.
It's honestly such an interesting 4-issue series that just kind of, it's so fast paced. It almost like breaks your neck with the speed at which it moves. But anyways, that's my third or my second pick. Nick, what's your last cover here? I know you already had 2 because you cheated, but
I was planning on dropping a Raoul Allen cover, but you just dropped a Raoul Allen cover, which means I'm going to drop a second, and I don't care.
What are we looking at?
So Secret Weapons number 3.
Another Valiant book.
What is
another Valiant cover by the same artist?
Well, I mean, to be fair, I picked 2 DC books that both started with the letter S. So, like, Oh, it's fine. All right. There's a lot of yellow going on here, which now that I see it, that's not a very common cover color. Right. There's a lot of, it's like a gold tone, like a bright marigold yellow. Just the whole cover is fairly monochromatic. And then there's like a lot of stuff. Like the title takes up a full half the cover, but vertically, not horizontally. And then you see a dude wearing a Bowie skull t-shirt. Is that what that is? And there's a lot of junk around him. There's like a teddy bear and a pipe and a horn.
You
French
say
horn.
Junk. One man's trash, right?
I mean, there's a pharaoh head in here. Is that real? Like, that's priceless if so. There's also like a pizza and a Game Boy Color. Just like
Rubik's Cube, a lemon.
Yeah.
A Timex watch.
So this to me says bachelor struggling with things. Like he's just lying on the floor of his apartment and his life is spread out around him physically and symbolically. And
I like that.
He's just got like stuff going on. Can't really deal. Like his hands are like behind his head and on top of his stomach, and there's some like discoloration coming out of that. So I'm wondering if he's been injured through superpowers somehow.
What about his face? How would you describe his face, his expression?
I would describe his facial expression as constipated Reggie Mantle. Like, this is like an Elvis who is uncomfortable. There's a pout, but he's not in pain. He's just kind of confused and doesn't really know what's going on. Maybe a little discomfort. I don't know. He's definitely like lying on the ground. Like, his knee is kind of up in a way that suggests that he's on the ground.
Okay.
I don't know what this book is about, Nick. What is this book about? I've never read.
I mean, I've read this book. I can't remember. I don't remember what the specific issue is, but yeah, I mean, I know who this character is, so I love this cover. It's absolutely beautiful.
It's great. I just don't know what this book is about.
Yeah. Give us a description, Nick.
Right. So this book does surround a group of individuals who have found out that they have superpowers or abilities, and they weren't recruited into this big sort of like, if you consider like that this universe has something equivalent to the X-Men where people get powers and they learn how to use them and develop them. Some people get powers, but their powers are considered to be quote unquote useless, quote unquote novelties, whatever you want to say. And so this comic really centers around a lot of these rejects, so to speak, who have these powers that are considered trivial or not really great. There's one character who can just touch anything and it has the ability to make things glow. And with the covers, what they've done is they've illustrated, if I remember right, I think this is true for each cover, they illustrate one of the people's powers. And the person you're seeing on this cover is Owen. And Owen's ability is that he's able to manifest one item at any given point. He can just manifest the item. The problem is he cannot control at all what the item is. Like, he just manifests it and he has no idea whether or not, like, if he's like falling out of the air and he'd love to manifest a parachute, who's to say he doesn't manifest the keyboard, right? Or something like that.
Right.
So,
so then that makes sense as the cover.
Yeah.
So you just have a ton of junk. Yep.
Yeah, and I just want to remind everybody that you can buy the Have You Read Secret Weapons Yet t-shirt in our store, ircbpodcast.com, shop.ircbpodcast.com. It's made specifically for Nick.
Right, but then my thought was, all right, I need that t-shirt, but then I can never read Secret Weapons because then the joke is I've never read it.
Well, if you read it, then you're the person asking the question, right? That's the idea.
But what if I want to antagonize people into thinking I'm a fake geek girl instead?
Oh my gosh, Kara, you're on level 5 of this manipulation game. I'm only on level 1. Well, okay, this is really cool. Like I said, we're kind of running out of time here. I prepped like 10 different covers. We had a bunch in reserve just in case. So, I mean, this was a lot of fun, Kara. I think it's an
interesting exercise because...
Yeah, I think we might have to revisit this with other people on the show because I think this could be really, really fun to find just some wild covers of books that we've read. I guess to wrap things up, I want to say thanks to everyone on the Discord for hanging out with us. Cinco and Jeff and Danny, we really appreciate it. You can always follow us on Twitter if you want more hot comic takes and things like that. You can follow Kara at KaraSam. You can follow Nick at Death Star Plans. You can follow me at Mike Rappin. And you can follow the show at IRCB Podcast on Twitter and Instagram.
This episode first aired on Patreon and is possible because of our wonderful patrons. You can join today for access to exclusive series like IRCB Movie Club, Saga of Saga, and more. You can join now at patreon.com/IRCB podcast.
Yeah, join now. We've got some stuff coming down the pipe this year. If you haven't already, please rate and review our show 5 stars on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. It really does help us spread the word about IRCB. And you can join the IRCB Discord community to chat comics and more, and to listen to our episodes live as we record at ircbpodcast.com/discord. And it would help us a lot if you tell your friends or your local comic shop about the show, perhaps while wearing your Have You Read Secret Weapons t-shirt.
yeah, you can always get t-shirts and stuff like that at shop.ircbpodcast.com, where we've got all sorts of things like stickers and pins and t-shirts and all sorts of fun stuff. Infinity Shred is the best band in the universe. They do all of our music. Can't thank them enough. Their new EP is out. It's fantastic. Xander is a very nice person, very, very cool friend. Nice guy who wears a hat all the time, at least when I see him on video. He also edits the show. I want to say thank you to Kara and Nick again for being on this episode. Thank you to Jeff, Cinco, and Danny for hanging out with us on Discord while we recorded live. Thank you to everyone out there who listens to the show. You are fantastic human beings, and we love you. Until next time, comics are good, and so are you.